Welcome to the Oddballs and Outcasts podcast. This is Pranav Shahani and we are at Wave Layer Studio in Pune. And today with me, I have Vibhor Thorat as guest number one. So Vibhor, before I introduce yourself, why don't you do that for me?
Thanks for having me, man. It's good to be here. I had no idea I was going to be the first guest, which is exciting. And I'm very happy for you that you're doing this. I know this has been on your mind for quite a long time. So lots of love there. My name is Vibhor, like he said. I've been his friend for the past, 15,
Probably more.
15 saal?
We can say 15 years, yeah.
Yeah. And we only really began talking after our 10th standard.
After our 10th standard got
high
over.
school.
Yeah. I think we were never in the same class either.
Yeah, I mean, we just had like that good,
Yeah.
that head not going. Like from 5th to 10th, that's when we're really
Yeah.
developing some sort of social behavior.
That's what you're going to call it. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what to call it. Yeah, my name is Vibhor. I'm a chef. I'm 25. I feel like I have the whole world. I have my whole life ahead of me. I mainly make a lot of sourdough breads and cheesecakes and deliver them across Pune. And I work as an experiential educator, so I can travel for like safaris and camps. It's a good life.
So tell me about how you got into this field. Like you've gone abroad, you worked here, you worked abroad, you worked at Michelin Star hotels. So tell me the experience of that.
Um, yeah, I've been fortunate enough to travel. How I got into it, I don't really have memories of like this aha moment where I just thought, oh, I'm gonna be here. Like that moment of clarity never really arrived. Even if it did, I don't remember it very clearly. I do remember thinking around my ninth standard exams, going, oh, every time somebody would ask me, what do you want to be in life? I was like programmed to say, oh, I'm going to be an IAS officer. And I had no idea what it stood for. That was mainly because I kept hearing it from like my mother saying, anybody asks, you say you're going to be an IAS officer. Somewhere there was this conscience that like tuned out of that. And I thought I really enjoy cooking. Maybe I should give it a try. And I didn't do it after 10th. I mean, there's a vocational subject you can take up which only enables you to cook. But being in a very Indian conditioned household, I took science, which is what like most of us did.
Big mistake.
You didn't.
I did.
That's good. And then in my 12th standard, I cleared an exam called the JEE mains. And my mother was like over the moon because, oh, my son's gonna like get at least 6 lakhs per annum in 4 years. And once you clear the JEE mains, you can appear for something called the JEE advanced. And instead of going for the advanced, I just lied to my mom that I'm going to the advanced exam, but instead I went for something called a state hotel management CET.
That's when your rebellious phase began.
I don't know, man. I don't know what I was thinking. Those were the most stressful 2 months of my life, between appearing for the exam, lying at home, because my mom was like ready with the puja thali, jo bhi hai, aukshan, is what we call it. And yeah, I was losing hair, I remember, for the 2 months.
And now you've got so much of it.
Yeah. But I stood first in the state CET exam, which was like a good thing.
Yeah.
It helped convince my mother that, okay, I have some propensity to do good here. Like there's skill involved. And then she just said, okay, like go do your thing if you need to. But don't count on me for any support because I have no fucking clue what this industry holds. So yeah, that's how it was.
And tell me about your experience going abroad. Like what sort of differences you found in the culture there and here, and also what did you learn that you're applying to your business here?
I mainly joined because I could cook. I mean, that's why I started to study hotel management as an undergrad subject. But there was this essence of hospitality that was more important to me, which I wanted to figure out. I remember that I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no clarity at all. But there was just this one thought at the back of my head thinking, okay, let's explore what hospitality could mean. So in order to do that, I was studying for my first 4 years. So that would be like 5 days a week. But I'd also work 3 days, including weekends, at a local bistro part-time.
This is in Sweden.
No, this is here. Like
This
my
is here,
first
okay.
day of college was my first day of work.
Okay.
Washing like pots and pans at a bistro here in Kothur. and that taught me a lot. I mainly was able to interact with a lot of like new minds, good people. I was taught a lot of good things. It really refined my personality, is what I would say, to what it is now,
Yeah.
which is not like
Nothing great, but it's fine.
not very commendable. uh, but I did that for 2.5 years, and then I trained in the Maldives, which is something you have to do for a semester. Not in the Maldives, you have to take a semester and intern at a property of your choosing. So students during that time usually go for like 5-star properties across India. Some opt to go out if the college gives them that option. I took the Maldivian way out. 6 months trained at a really cool restaurant under like this hard French Mauritian chef.
I wanted to speak to you about that because you told me you met some Premier League footballers there.
Yeah, I met.
What was that experience like? Just a segue.
Yeah, I remember my interaction with Morten Pederson.
Morten Gamst Pederson, yeah.
So he's a pretty cool guy, man. He was there with his family. I had no idea he was a footballer. So I was on the buffet. I was grilling octopus, and he comes up and he's really warm. If you've met him, like he's very receptive. You feel like talking to him, and he also wants to know more about you.
Yeah.
So in that moment, while serving him, it was just this very candid conversation we were having. I was just talking to him about the mahi fish on the buffet, and he was like, "Oh, I love that." And then I asked him what he does for a living, and he's like, "Oh, I play football." He was like very modest about it. And then he went on to tell me that he's actually a big deal in a very humble tone.
Yeah.
There was nothing like huge about it.
Yeah, he was a Premier League player. He was known for scoring free kicks and good long range goals.
Yeah. I later read up on how he was like pretty good with his free kicks.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I had no idea. Even today, I don't watch football. Like I prefer to play.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a nice guy. He had a beautiful wife with him, and yeah, I don't know what else I recall from that memory.
But yeah, going back to your time working there, those 6 months.
That was mainly me working in the kitchen because over at the bistro here in Pune, I was mainly handling the floor, working in the front of house, interacting with customers, solving queries, taking orders, running the food. But when I went over to the Maldives, I was able to cook the whole time for like 5.5 months, and then I came back. And then I didn't know if I wanted to cook anymore. So I just took some time off and I started volunteering at a farm outside the city. That's where I met some of my closest friends today. And after that one gap, in my 4th year, while I was like in the final year of getting my degree, I started writing to a lot of restaurants across the world, all these restaurants that I've been admiring for a very long time.
Yeah.
From a very like detailed and objective lens, thinking about, okay, like this menu looks good, like who's the chef here? And by the time I was in my 4th year, I had this repository of like different chefs doing some very exciting things with food, and it kind of moved me a lot back then. Like I remember feeling like, oh man, if only I was in this kitchen. So I wrote to 104 different restaurants, out of which, and I don't know what I was thinking, because I was like this. I literally live in an area called Hadapsar at the point, and Hadapsar is just like this.
So these 104, did you have a criteria for picking them, or what was it?
Yeah, I mainly looked at all of these restaurants are fine dining restaurants. The concept of fine dining is very different in the global sense. In India, you don't really have a culture of fine dining restaurants.
There are places here that say they are fine dining. So what's the difference?
Which is okay. I mean, it's a very niche group of restaurants that cater to a very small percentage of people.
Okay.
And you can categorize it under like a very expensive restaurant, like incredibly expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Even the standalone restaurants that get classified as fine dining, they will charge you a lot of money. I mean, it's close to anything upwards of 3,000 rupees a seat.
Okay.
And rightfully so. I mean, they really try to push the limits of how they can redefine what cooking means and what hospitality can encompass. So they do a good job. Currently, the best restaurant in India is known as Mask, which is in Mumbai.
Okay.
They're doing a pretty good job of like pushing
The fine dining.
yeah, I mean they're raising the bar
Okay.
in that sense, and they really put in the effort. So it's good that the recognition is coming their way. It's been coming their way for the past 2-3 years now, and I'm happy about it. But overall, India doesn't really have a culture of like fine dining, and that's good enough, is what my belief is,
Yeah.
because Indians have a very communal sense of eating, right?
Yeah.
We sit down with our families. We are not very nuclear with our relationships. So we don't really have a need for lots of fine dining
Yeah.
restaurants where, you have to pretty much
But
count every course coming your way.
I think if you have to start, Mumbai has to be the place for it. I think that's the place where everything might start for fine dining. And it also depends on which area in Mumbai, because there are, as you know, there's a huge divide.
I mean, you could mainly credit the pioneering of establishing a fine dining restaurant to a chef called Manish Mehrotra, who started in Delhi
Okay.
with a restaurant called Indian Accent. And for the longest time, Indian Accent was like very critically acclaimed. Not just in India, initially in India, of course, but then it made waves throughout the world. Some very good chefs have come out of that restaurant. One of his chefs went on to open a restaurant called Tres Ind in Dubai, which is now considered one of the most like tastiest restaurants
Okay.
in the world. So it's pretty cool. His name is Chef Himanshu Saini. Himanshu Saini.
All right.
Yeah. Someone to look up to.
Yeah. Yeah. So back to you applying to those places.
Yeah.
104.
Yeah, we keep digressing.
Yeah. That's the point of a podcast.
I don't know. This is my first time. Yeah, I mean, 104 restaurants you write to as a snotty 17-year-old kid hoping to get in. Not 17, 19. And out of those, I think 64 replied back. Out of those 64, 2 replied positively.
Okay.
One of them was a restaurant called Puyol in New Mexico, which is a pretty cool restaurant. And one called Franzen in Stockholm, Sweden. And then by the time I was in my final year, like I said, I had some money saved up. We have scholarships being given out to like meritorious students. Also the caste-based thing that goes on. So yeah, I was able to save up to like 4 lakhs in rupees, and I ended up using all of those to fund my own travel, go to Stockholm, live like a beggar in a small, like compartmentalized, not even like my own room.
Yeah.
Like I was living in somebody's hall that had like a compartment in it,
Yeah.
and like my own bed. And I mainly spent my time entirely focused on work, like taking staff meal home in like a Tupperware box, re-eating that, eating it, and mainly just working. Met some magical people there. Learned a lot. It's an entirely new world. When I don't just mean it in the cultural sense, but also from what you learn about food here and what you see out there, you wouldn't know where to begin on like the distinguishing.
So can you tell me some of the most noticeable differences?
One of the main characteristics was that they had 2 different kitchens. One would be the prep area where all the main sauces, the proteins, the accompaniments, the desserts, the breads, all of them would be prepared, and there was a live service kitchen and it had a bar where guests would sit and they could observe live cooking going on in like front of them, with like firewood, a lot of like aesthetic aspects really boosting that experience, the quality of that experience for the guest.
Yeah.
And it was just like a symphony, like an orchestra of service. I mean, if you were sitting with your girlfriend or your wife, you'd see 2 hands come in at the same time, serve you food, 2 hands go back at the same time, and you won't even know that you're being really well taken care of. At the same time, you really appreciate it to a point like, how is this happening? How are the transitions so seamless?
Yeah.
Even while clearing your plates, they are very coordinated. They're in sync. And it's almost to a point where, there's 12 chefs who are also somehow waiting the table you're seated at. They're also refilling your water and they're cooking all of this is happening, and there's like chefs actually taking care of you to that point where you really feel valued as a customer. And the food is amazing, like primarily. That's what I would focus on, because everything else is supplementary.
Yeah.
But the food is so good. Very thoughtfully crafted. Lots of chefs doing lots of research and development. I don't want to get too specific with certain terms, because I don't know how it will like reflect with the viewers also.
You can just explain it to the layman.
I mean, it was, for example, we had a canapé that needed 24 hours of preparation.
Okay.
It started with like a single potato, and then you had to like churn it out in a machine that like you enter a aloo dalo or noodle nikalta hai aloo ka, and then you pretty much wrap it around a steel tube cylinder. You deep fry it, you dehydrate it, you fill it with a filling of a very special vinegar and pickled onions and cream cheese, and then there's like the roe of a fish called there's Vendas roe, which is a popular type of fish over in Scandinavian countries. And then it's difficult to explain, because every piece is, let's say, 2 inches long or wide, and it takes you 24 hours to make, and people are done eating it in like 2 minutes. So it's very difficult to justify the.
And how expensive are these things? Because they're taking so much preparation.
It's not like you order one thing and you pay $20 or like 2,000 rupees for it. It's mainly around. You book your seat, you book your experience at the restaurant, and they'll take care of you throughout.
Okay.
So they'll pretty much hand you a menu once you arrive, and they let you know this is what we have available. Before you book, of course, they take a very detailed note of your dietary restrictions.
So is it something like the movie The Menu?
You've seen the menu?
Apart from the finale.
I mean, the menu is like a very, I think, it's a parody for sure. It's satire. I don't know if people notice that. But it's also reflective of some very ridiculous things that go on in fine dining kitchens. I mean, that's certainly the sentiment you see, right? Like, you've always heard that joke that there's a small plate coming in front of you.
Yeah.
And is this what I'm eating? Like, how does... And then there's that course of the bread, right?
Yeah.
Where he says, we've been eating bread for so long, so this is your course, no bread. Something like that.
Yeah.
It's so thought-provoking coming from the chef's mind, to the extent that it's just pragmatically ridiculous. But no, I wouldn't say Franzen was that. Franzen was it was a delicious restaurant. I don't know what else to say. Beyond deliciousness, they make you feel so valued as a customer. I wouldn't put it as simply as valued as a customer, because that's like a very commonplace term now. You could just say it and think that you've achieved something. It's an experience where you'd want to visit the city of Stockholm for.
But, sticking to the menu, how was it viewed in your circles? What about your colleagues? Did they like it?
Everyone's too busy working 12, 14 hours a day. Yeah, most people are busy working 12 to 14 hours a day to even notice that it has come out. Some people who have some flexibility in work timings, like I do, may have. I haven't been able to discuss it with any of my colleagues.
Okay.
Though I'm sure they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Because it really encapsulates the ridiculousness of the mind of a chef that has like gone loony.
Yeah. And I'm sure all restaurants experience these kind of customers, right? Ones who are just there for the place, ones who don't really care about the food, they just want the experience, those kind of people. And it was a nice way to expose all of that.
Yeah.
The fakeness, basically.
For sure. Like, it goes both ways in the movie. It's not just like the chef trying to be entirely...
Yeah, exactly.
Like a psychopath.
Like, at the end, you realize that, okay, all of them deserve to die. Spoiler alert, sorry, but...
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far to say that the customer deserves to die if they want their, I don't know, beef cooked a certain degree. What was the question again?
It was just about how it was viewed in your circles, and basically, is that how all customers are? In not exactly that way, but maybe in certain ways, like certain characteristics in different customers.
You can't... I find it difficult to put customers in a certain stereotype. I can't place them under one label or like one umbrella term. But yeah, you do get some like really funny people that make your day in a way, because they like enrich you with that experience of wow, like
Yeah.
this guy exists. This guy comes to the restaurant and this guy does the things.
Yeah.
Like they want extra boiled potatoes with their mash or something.
Yeah.
It's just like, why? But they want it. And then the onus is on the restaurant to, somehow balance that stand they take between, okay, provide the customer what they want, they'll leave happy, or we don't serve that. Why is it customer trying to be extra for no reason? Like we already have a good menu, it's balanced, it is really thoughtfully curated. Why won't you have it the way we are making it?
Yeah.
And very few restaurants in India, I would say, do that. They'll go above and beyond to just, even if the customer wants like monkey brains on their plate, they'll, I think, somehow figure out a way to make the customer believe that there's monkey brains on the plate.
But personally, what do you think is the right way? Say you are the owner of a restaurant or a sous chef, and someone comes and tells you some ridiculous demands, and you think it's ridiculous, but you can't really say that to their face. How do you tackle such situations then?
It's difficult for sure. It puts you in the spot. And I think there's one core aspect to consider of that of a chef is that they kind of put a part of themselves in the art, as corny as it sounds.
Yeah.
And they want we want a certain validation to hear the simple words of, oh, like, this is really good. Because once we hear this is really good, it makes us want to think about, okay, like we made something that was really good, and maybe now we can think about elevating it. But with the current idea of good enough in my mind, if I were to present you something I made and you say that, oh, like this could, can you do this for me? Can you add this to this? This is like less than that. It kind of puts you like 10 steps behind in your mind. But I think I might just be speaking out of like personal experience here, and I really cannot generalize it for how my colleagues might be thinking.
Yeah.
But I think you just roll with the punches with customers, and you try to put the best version of yourself out there, because if you're incredibly heavily critical of everything you do based on so many feedbacks you get from so many directions, you will not be able to operate.
Yeah. And that's what I wanted to come to. Like, you've been in this field for a while, so you must be getting a lot of positive and negative feedback. Now, how do you deal with it? Like, if it's positive, how do you ensure it doesn't get to your head? And if it's negative, how do you make sure it doesn't get you down in the dumps? Because often it does happen that way, right? Sometimes something really negative can just spoil your day or spoil your week, and sometimes something positive might think you're just doing everything right. So how do you balance that out?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I still struggle with that. I think more than balance, there's just understanding the contrast of like this plethora of feedbacks you can receive, right? And if you look at the job of a chef, it's practically a blue-collar job, meaning it mainly requires a lot of manual labor. There's not a lot of strategic thinking required, especially when you start out.
Yeah.
And it's one of those jobs where somehow it transitions into a white-collar job if you like stick at it for decades on end, and somewhere you just find yourself running a chain of restaurants or setting the menu for a really high profile place with like those really specific price points that only a few people can afford. It's mainly a blue collar job. It's the way I see it.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's where I'm placing myself in my journey right now. And it can render you like immobile. It can render you to be in this like mentally petrified sort of state that how do I move out of this? And for me, the best lesson I've learned is to simply have faith in the process. Trust what I'm cooking is out of like good intent. It's a good recipe. Put it out there in the sense that you want people to talk about this. Understand that constructivism in like the constructivism of the dialogue between the customer and the chef is really important.
Yeah.
And nowadays we don't really see that, or like for the longest time we haven't seen that in kitchens, where chefs have always been like pushed all the way to the back of a kitchen someplace. They've never really come in contact with the customer. And there's been a waiter who's also had a very stressful job of relaying some very rude comments to the chef and relaying back some like translated version of the chef's angry gibberish being thrown at the waiter, which is how the stereotype has been for the longest time. I think it's changing slowly, where you see like windows into the kitchen now.
Yeah.
So slowly that physical space is crossing over.
So do you think it's giving rise to more and more celebrity chefs because of the transparency?
I don't understand the term celebrity chefs. I mean, is that somebody who's really popular on TV?
Yeah, someone who's
Who's
either great at their job or great at marketing what they do.
yeah, who has like a lot of goodwill to their name.
Probably, yeah. And their food might not be that great, but they promote it in such a way that everyone associates themselves or aspires to be something like that. Do you think that that's where the culture is headed? Like, what is your take about celebrity chefs, firstly?
They are the main reason there's a lot of enrollment in these colleges we have in India, that somebody looks at a chef's show
Yeah.
on TV and goes, that's pretty cool. What if I can do that? And there's everyone imagines all the roses at the end of the show when you're in the spotlight,
Yeah.
right? Sorry. And I think they're the main reason for enrollment for a lot of these young children, in a way, who want to learn about the craft. And they have this idea that I'm going to be somebody in the spotlight like this someday, until they realize, oh, there's a lot of work to be done. And that begins from like scrubbing mud off of a potato in a kitchen where there's like most places not great ventilation
Yeah.
in a tropical country like ours. And they're kind of disillusioned in the start of their journey. I know I was. Although my main motivation was never like TV. I just wanted to understand hospitality, like I said.
Yeah.
It's very vague. I still don't understand it at times. But that is the motivation. I wouldn't necessarily say that's where the culture is headed, because I see a lot of people in the... I mean, celebrity chefs are just this less than 1% people who are popular out there.
Yeah.
But there's this entire collection of brigades being run across countless restaurants in countries that have this small decentralized cultures going around in their respective kitchens. And I think that effort, once it's known to you, like when you realize that, oh, okay, cooking is about existing in these decentralized spaces where people are putting in a lot of effort,
Yeah.
and the gratification they receive is not high, like the incentive is not very high as in terms of financial wealth, but somehow they push harder than any other workforce you've seen, or along the likes of some of the most underrated workforces you've seen. That's when that disillusionment happens.
Yeah.
It either makes a person drop out of the industry thinking that this is not for me, or it makes them like buckle up and just like get ready for the ride. So I don't know where the culture is exactly headed,
Okay.
because I'm also part of... I run my own micro kitchen, which is a small space. I'm able to like handle different aspects of it. I know how to work clean and these simple fundamental things that I can apply
Yeah.
to a very small operation like that. But I still feel that I'm in a very I'm in the very educational phase of my journey.
Okay.
And I think that's how it should be. Everyone pretty much should be exploring with that mindset. Like, what is my potential? What am I able to achieve through my effort? Because, like I said, you're scrubbing a potato. Let's say you're doing that 2 years down the line, because prep work is hard. Like,
Yeah.
Preparing everything in the kitchen is really difficult. And to like... You literally find yourself scrubbing mud off of a potato out of a crate and thinking, where's my life going? If you kind of like imagine putting yourself in those shoes, you can understand how difficult that state of mind might be. Because today we really equate a lot of our success in terms of like how much money are we making. Chef's not making much, especially somebody who's been absorbed out of a college into a 5-star property. They're making less than 17,000-15,000 a month, and they're living in a crammed room with three other guys who work in the same restaurant because that's what they can afford, and uh, they're mainly trying to, because home doesn't really make them feel great when they return to it,
Yeah.
because it's just like a bunk house.
Yeah.
So they end up spending maximum amounts of their time and energy at work,
Yeah.
which is something also that gets kind of exploited,
Hmm.
because people are like, okay, like we have people who are doing work without complaining for like 15, 16 hours.
But that's what they say about 5 stars, right? It looks so glamorous from the outside, and then this is what happens on the inside. Like their employees aren't treated too well, even though some places are known for their food. Their chefs aren't really treated well. They're working crazy hours per day.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's the case? When on the outside they're making so much money, living luxurious lives. Why are they not able to treat their employees better? What do you think about that? Has this been prevalent for years, or is it something new, or is it on the decline now?
Um, I'd like to hope that it's on the decline. Like people are able. I want people to think that they can explore more options outside of a 5-star property, because that's something you're heavily conditioned to believe in the college ecosystems we have here. So as an undergrad student, from the first day of your first year all the way to your fourth years, there'll be very few guests being called out of like the college sphere
Yeah.
into the college to speak to the students who are running standalone restaurants, or maybe doing something that's related to operating a food and beverage service establishment. They might be growing mushrooms on a farm somewhere, or
Yeah.
they might be I don't know, making feni, or they might be doing something that's not really the norm, and those people never get called to the colleges. Especially, I mean, the kind of people that get called are the general manager of like this hotel, or the duty manager of this hotel, the housekeeper, executive housekeeper, and all these labels of people who have. I really respect the amount of work they put in.
But isn't that just PR? Like they're just coming to paint a rosy
That's
picture.
what I
Yeah.
mean, is that the culture is like colleges are dependent on hotels to absorb all the students that the colleges are kind of like putting out there, and the hotels are also kind of dependent on colleges to provide them with this menial workforce that should come in.
Yeah.
I don't mean that the significance or the value of that individual being absorbed into the hotel is menial,
Hmm.
but for them that is the point of view. Is
That's
what
how
I
they.
mean.
That's how they look at the students. Yeah.
I wouldn't, again, like I'm sure that with education there might be good cultures, some reform that might be going on, because again I like to emphasize on the fact that all these kitchens and food and service establishments and hotels, avenues of hospitality for that matter, are very decentralized.
Yeah.
So I would hope that people who are climbing the rungs of that it is a corporate ladder in a sense, are able to imbibe good cultural values so that they can actually enable people to explore their most creative sides
Yeah.
as much as possible in the ambit of that ecosystem. But I really can't speak on how toxic it is, because I personally took the way out of not like opting for 5-star jobs, because I got through the interview rounds of a very, very prominent management training program in my like after my final year of college.
Yeah.
And I remember that there was no real warmth I could sense walking through like those hallways of the hotel, just being guided from like one floor to the other floor, go in this dark room, meet the VP of learning, and it's 11 in the night. All of a sudden I'm thinking, what am I doing here? I'm all the way out in Mumbai. I'd rather be home and think about like food or something. I don't know. I'm 19. I don't really have a lot of sense at the time.
Yeah.
But I remember that intrinsic feeling of that absolute lack of warmth, as if I am just some pawn in their game.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling that I may be giving myself too much importance at that point, or even now when I recall that memory. But I remember feeling that very strongly, and I said, I don't want to be in a hotel like this. I don't want to do it. So that is kind of why I like wrote to so many restaurants.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to understand on a much more smaller level, like how can you be a hospitable professional.
Yeah. But is this the same overseas as well as it is in India, in terms of the work culture, the hours, and all those kind of things?
Ours are lesser,
Okay.
for sure, outside, because they have, I would say, more prominent laws in place that disable owners of these properties to kind of like make people work
So
too
they have
much.
good labor laws.
Also, good cultural values, I
Yeah.
would say. Um, I don't think India is like too far from implementing something like that, because again, these are like decentralized cultures.
Yeah.
There's no one high autocratic entity saying that, okay, like now all hotels will have people like lower rung employees working 14 hours, 15 hours. There's no one entity doing that.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I think it's easier for us to like think on these things and imbibe that in the way we operate, whoever might be listening right now.
Yeah.
Because that's what I would hope for. I would hope for the industry to be known as hospitable even in the back end of things. I would want it to be known as a welcoming avenue for people who want to really explore how much they have to give to for very little gratification in the material sense.
But what do you think India needs to do to like change it? You say that you want it, you think it can happen, but is there a government intervention needed, or what do you think is the way out of it?
I mean, I might be out of my depth here because, like I said,
But what do you think over the top of your head?
I'm still learning. But I feel I don't think there's government intervention required. If it gets very bad to a point where people are unable to function as teams, as individuals, then I think they'll pretty much go on strikes, and then that might be a cue for government bureaucrats to start saying something. I think a lot of issues can be solved through a lot of community-based thinking, mainly because you don't really need the government to step in for everything. And that is what I personally believe. And I mainly think it's a lot of... I think people need to travel more in the industry and meet new people and explore new perspectives and talk to people with different mindsets without presenting their triggered behaviors in those conversation spaces.
But when you talk about people, do you mean people at the high level or at the low level?
I mean, somebody from the lower level climbs up to the higher level, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's everybody. I don't... Because mainly what happens is people at the lower rung who are doing a lot of the grassroots level manual labor, they barely have time to absorb any thoughts that might be presented from the outside world to them. They're just operating on this incredibly mechanic level of doing labor. And for a person like that who has no rest, because the definition of rest is something they've reduced down to sleeping 5 hours or maybe taking a nap for 10 minutes during their lunch break. That's like cutting their lunch break down by 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's how they're defining their rest. Like, this is happening. And they've warped this definition for themselves in order to fit into a very demanding lifestyle. And I don't know what the solution is for them to feel enabled that they have a voice. They can maybe figure out certain ways of getting work done in a different manner, because the volume of work is huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't think there's a lot of mindfulness about how much waste is being created. Because I remember working in the Maldives. I'm just going to digress a bit. The buffet wastage for one meal for breakfast would be on average 15 kilos. And on weekends it would go as high as 25 kilos per meal, right? So let's say that's averaging 75 kilos to something around 45 to 75 kilos per day of wastage of food that's going straight into the bin. And one thought exercise I did for myself while over there was, while we would like put in our indent list to source ingredients, we would get beef that was Japanese Wagyu beef, and the cow was, reared in Australia and butchered there, and then it would get processed through, I think, New Zealand or some other place like that, then get transported all the way to Singapore via Malaysia, and then from Malé, which is the capital of the Maldives, to our small island, all to be sold after again being trimmed, and the trim being wasted, and this perfect piece of beef
Yeah.
being served to the customer for like a very high amount of money. And it made me think, like, is this worth it? Why aren't we thinking about this? I mean, does this require some mindfulness? Is what my question was.
Yeah.
Which is why I kind of retorted, I kind of reserve myself to a much smaller space, which I still do to this day, because I don't have the answer. And as much as I would like to like go ahead and like do all these things on a higher volume, cooking on a higher volume,
Yeah.
simply put, I simply feel unsettled doing it, and that's me. There's many people who can cook circles around me.
Yeah.
They're amazing at doing their work. Somehow I just have this gift of gab, right?
Yeah.
And what was I discussing? The buffet. Yeah. So manual labor, it kind of inhibits you from thinking.
Yeah.
It kind of inhibits your rationality. There's a lot of anger management issues that like get thrown around. I mean, that are prevalent in hotel environments, and I think those are the main issues that kind of need addressal. And we can start by establishing defined work hours that don't really get pulled here and there because there's a holiday coming up and the bulk and the volume of food that needs preparation is going to be higher, and suddenly the banquet capacity has gone from like 800 to 2000, so we need to up our production. And I mean, I'm sure there's a solution to all these things, but it will require a lot of dialogue and conversations between people who are in a position to kind of regulate certain matters. So that's where I think you could ask like the management position people to step in and talk about these things, because mainly what gets talked about is like, oh, okay, this is the kind of business we're getting, this party wants these many plates to be served and these many covers that need to be taken care of, and then there's people who are working around the clock, working like outrageous amounts of hours to make that happen for you. And I think as people, we turn sort of a blind eye towards it because we have our own shit to deal with.
Exactly.
We are not gonna like.
And I don't think it gets enough coverage in the media. There aren't too many people talking out about it because firstly, they don't have time. Secondly, they're at risk of losing their jobs. There are a lot of issues why people don't, make it public. And I think that's unfortunate and it needs changing. So it's good to see that there are people in the industry that are willing to take some steps at least towards making a change.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like unknowns of living life.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know, so you're still figuring everything out.
So in a way, you must be glad that you're not part of that corporate ladder, part of that rat race, trying to be the best in front of your bosses. Do you prefer having the flexibility of working from your own space?
I mean, honestly, there are a few aspects that I really miss of mainly being part of a team.
A team, yeah.
I really miss that. I truly miss working with some like-minded colleagues and just like new perspectives, good banter, like completely politically incorrect atmospheres, and really good jokes and consequently.
And the camaraderie you build is second to none.
Immense. It's immense. Like you stand shoulder to shoulder with somebody and you cook. You cook with them to a point where the hours just become like existent.
Yeah.
And they're there. They're in abundance. The time is just it is there, but you kind of start counting it in terms of, well, how did we do this service? It kind of fades away, which is why a lot of people really enjoy pushing themselves to that limit because they don't realize that much time has passed. There are those people who really put themselves in gears of getting things done one after the other, really slow, and then moving it up to making it nice and smooth, and then really fast at progressing at work. And they do it in a really well coordinated, synchronized team, and that speaks volumes, because if you come out of that experience and you obviously change teams across your journey and you bid your goodbyes. You never really forget those relations because they really helped you um, become a good worker. They made you become a good communicator. Those experiences make you a good team member in the very literal sense, because there's so many variables that get thrown at you during service when
Yeah.
a restaurant is, let's say, open during lunch and dinner hours. Um, there's so many factors that just like unplanned for that occur,
Yeah.
and you have to deal with them. And the team doesn't go, well, we didn't prepare for this. Like, they just go, okay, we'll get it done.
Yeah.
And there's no democracy in a kitchen on top of that. So you really need to have like a good leader installed in place, which is which is like a different conversation.
Absolutely. But also, you run a cloud kitchen, and there are also these food trucks that were pretty prevalent a few years ago, and I feel that's kind of declined now, apart from the established ones that have really made it big. So, what do you think the future of restaurants is in India? Like, do you see it more of a going to a certain place and sitting, or do you think it's going to be a cloud kitchen where people prefer calling things home, or they prefer going out and standing at a food truck? Like, what do you see? Where do you see the change in that? Do you see it being the traditional dining system, or do you maybe figure something different out that will come in the next few years? What do you think is where do you think this is headed?
I mean, I like the idea of nuances kind of like modernizing the way we've been cooking traditional food.
Yeah.
I think I made a very complex statement there.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, I don't think India is going to turn into this like hot cuisine landmark with like these really fine details to your food.
But why not? There are so many.
I mean, I would love that. I'm not against it.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, on a general standard of observing India through a culinary lens, I think we'll see a lot of these amazing restaurants that the cooks love to visit after they're done with their shift.
Okay.
Like, go for your, tatte idlis and your uh, your 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 South Indian snacks, as they're called. Amazing breakfast, good crispy vadas, and you go to like some thali place that
Yeah.
is very satiating to be at. I mean, everything about that experience of eating a thali in a good thali restaurant
Yeah.
is something you would want when you're like incredibly hungry.
Hmm.
You're not trying to be too ambitious with your money also, and also like different menu price points determine which crowd gets drawn to which restaurant. A really poor person living in the slums behind Balewadi is not going to be visiting Incognito or
Yeah.
some random
Some high-end place.
high-end place.
Yeah.
So it has a lot to do with the spending power of the guests, but also I would like to see more fine dine restaurants be established and people enjoying food. But at the crux of it, I believe as Indians, we'll find it difficult to like not be a communal people.
Yeah.
Uh,
So that's
in
one
the
of-
dining sense.
That's one of the main challenges you face, right? To innovate. Like, supposing you want to make it a food truck culture, that's going to be a completely different change altogether. So, changing the mindset of people is another important thing. And how do you think people who are just getting into it can go about it?
I think with like ambitious, enterprising people saying that I'm going to start a food truck because this needs to be done, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, if a person says that and they go ahead and they establish themselves a nice, fine, like a good food and beverage service establishment in the form of a food truck, people will come, is what I believe. And that's how enterprising like people think, and also how these projects are really successful. It's mainly when it's done with a lot of intent that I want to do this because it needs to be done in my mind. I think if you look at the waffle culture in Pune,
Yeah.
I initially thought it would be like a trend that will die down, but it was an anomaly that's hugely successful.
But I feel in a way it has died down. It had its few
But
years.
that's okay. I mean, it might still be a trend on the decline.
Yeah.
However,
Or maybe I feel
we did see a boom of it.
I feel it's on the decline in terms of people going to the place and eating it. I'm sure they must be preferring to call it at home. Like I feel that they don't want to go out. Maybe after COVID or something, things have just changed. People have preferred to stay at home more. So do you think that's in a way led to the decline of these things? Maybe food trucks or maybe these small restaurants on the streets?
I mean, the online food marketplace is a different discussion.
Yeah.
It has really kind of caused this shift in how restaurants have decided to operate nowadays, or in a way they had to adapt in a certain way to operate. Without getting into that, mainly when you see certain trends pop up, it's mainly the original person who started the trend stays in place, while multiple competitors who start building their menus around this product that this one person started, they gain some recognition, then the entire product gains recognition, then people start looking for different places to order this product from, waffles for example, and later on I feel like the original guy remains, but the others might kind of like see this decline in their like revenue or orders, for that matter, is something I would posit. I don't have any evidence supporting it.
Yeah, but do you think that the online market space has helped someone like you because you started your own thing?
I mean, it has its advantages for sure, and I don't mainly use the
delivery apps.
I don't use the mainstream aggregators.
Yeah,
I'm not going to name them.
But why not? Like, can you
because
tell me?
of the commission rates being incredibly high for my current level of operation.
Okay. And also, I think you had told me the software that the timings also, they need you to be on a certain between 6 to 10 every day or something that way.
Right. So a bit of context regarding my operation will help, because I mainly operate on what you would call pre-orders.
Yeah.
I do not serve people the food they're ordering within a certain time window on the same day. I offer the service to them whenever my time slot for the next day, or even if I'm full for that next day, then the time slot after that to deliver my breads or cheesecakes. These are the two main products that I operate with, like I work with. I have a few variations here and there. And because I work mainly on pre-orders, I don't need to be online waiting for my desktop to kind of ring a bell and for me to like run and get the ticket out and then start preparing bread, which is impossible to do.
Absolutely.
In like 20 minutes. And that's not been my model ever. But mainly what the mainstream aggregators will want you to do is they want to approach you only if you're running a full-fledged restaurant operation that is online during whatever the work hours are. And they will they make your job very easy, such that your physical space in the restaurant is not being occupied. At the same time, you're getting an order for somebody who wants to order from your establishment, and they'll deliver it from your restaurant to them. So it's a huge help. That's for sure. I mean, there's no way you can villainize any aspect of that. Mainly where restaurants struggle is trying to keep up with the commission rates. That, okay, you're able to provide this for us. Are we able to earn enough revenue with our profit cuts and our operational costs and enough left behind to give you this amount of money, right? There have been many cases where restaurants have been penalized and orders have been like cut off from the mainstream aggregator side, saying that, okay, you guys refuse to take certain orders during the hours that you were supposed to be operational at, so now we're going to levy a penalty on you of like these amount of minutes where you're unable to like send orders out.
Yeah.
And these things have happened in the past. I'm not sure what the current situation is. That's where like restaurants start thinking, well, is this worth it? Because I'm getting penalized. At the end of the month, I'm also paying them their cut.
Yeah.
So as an entity, it becomes difficult to sustain. That's one of the issues.
But then what were the challenges you faced without having one of these?
So I mainly use a third-party delivery app only.
Okay.
I do all the work of procuring orders, speaking to customers by myself.
Yeah.
And I pretty much give my customers a time frame in which they can order their stuff, order whatever they would like. And once I have it prepared, I will package it, and I will send it to them in the time frame that was instructed.
Okay.
So that's the way I operate,
Yeah.
which is a newly found way of running a business.
So most of your promotion is done via social media. Most
Yeah.
of your orders are got from there,
Yeah.
or by word of mouth. What
What-
would you say is better?
I mean, word of mouth is definitely the more enriching aspect of your marketing,
Mhm.
where somebody is pretty much standing alongside you behind your own food and saying like, have what this guy makes.
Yeah, they can vouch for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that vouching is incredibly powerful because as much as you might be tantalized by the visuals of some product that you might see online, and there's numerous
Yeah,
dishes that you just like scroll through
absolutely.
every time. Somebody who will really convert and gravitate towards wanting what you have to offer is when somebody really asks them to like forget about that, like get this.
Yeah.
That really translates in a very powerful manner. Is what I've observed, and I would like to like build on that. But yeah, again, there are people who pour numerous, massive resources into marketing,
Yeah.
and they do a good job of it. Like the brand is popular, it attracts people. People come and sit in the restaurants, they order, they do.
But what do you think they do that you can't do as an individual? Apart from the ads and all that, I'm saying just on your page, if you had certain things that you could improve or certain things you've thought you should have done earlier, what have you learned in these 3 years?
The main reason I started with pre-order basis orders, work is mainly because I didn't have like a great amount of capital to like run my own show
Yeah.
out of like a rental space or whatever it might be. Also, I lacked the experience, which I still do
Yeah.
to a large point.
But you've come
to-
leaps and bounds from where
Oh
you
yeah,
were.
for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Like not to take anything away from the effort I take pride in. But the main reason I couldn't do it is because I faced this lack of capital, and I had this ambition, and I had all these, outlandish thoughts that didn't align with what the mainstream 5-star hotels and restaurants were doing.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to explore and see, thinking that, okay, it's just my 20s. Why not give it a shot? What I've learned is that we already covered one aspect of it, is that word of mouth is an incredibly powerful tool for marketing. But strategizing is important, and the frequency of your the information regarding your menu reaching multiple people is also needs to be high.
Yeah.
Which is something I struggle with. Like my rate of marketing is quite low for that matter, and I am able to retain a lot of my customers. But that's also because I can't operate over a certain level of production,
That's true.
which means I am able. It's a small kitchen.
Yeah.
I literally have like a 16 by 20 inch bench space and 2 shelves in the fridge, and I'm able to rope out a good 30 loaves a day
Yeah.
on a good day. But any more than that, I'd probably struggle to like wake up the next morning. So you have to have marketing in lieu with the amount of production you can prepare, and you have to have a good workforce that is like consistent with the upkeep of your menu, in the sense that you're able to meet certain mechanical deadlines of
Yeah.
making food to this point, having waste recorded in this manner, and cleaning routines in this way. That is something I would like to standardize. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. Once,
In a way you are.
Yeah.
But also, like, do you think that maybe doing some reels or something that are trending, are you ever
yeah, for sure. That's
are you
what
ever looking at something that's trending and thinking maybe that's something I can do, something I should do? Or do you think that what you're doing, you want to stay authentic to what your brand is, and you don't want to cater to the larger scale audience, you just want your niche audience? What do you like and this is a very ideological question rather than a practical one, but what is your view on it?
No, for sure. I want to reach more people. The main reason not known to make these reels, which are a great tool, by the way, because they garner a lot of attention, lot of clicks, lot of likes.
Even though some of the content is
they get-
rubbish, like they are having Maggie with weird things. Those are the things that are trending. So do you ever think of maybe doing something that way? Not to exactly promote your stuff, but just to be known as someone in the space?
Yeah, I mean, it would be lovely. The main issue is I can't afford a marketing guy at the moment, and I suck at I'm crap at making reels.
I'm crap at making podcasts. It's okay.
Yeah.
That's how we learn.
Yeah, but again, I think that's a good point you bring up. Like, I might be getting in my own way and not making reels
Yeah.
because I do feel like I want to, but sometimes I'm happy with a photo that is like really well clicked,
Yeah.
and it is like doing the job. But I wonder if I'd be able to make a video that's pretty cool. A friend really helped out with one of my videos, and that turned out to be really nice.
What was the video about?
It's about like a night at Veda, just slapping around good loaves and baking.
By the way, Veda is the name of the
Yes,
company.
Veda in Marathi means somebody who's a madman. That's the name of my kitchen.
Initially I thought it was Veda. I thought it was something religious.
That's the icebreaker for me.
Yeah, exactly. And then my mom told me about it. I'm like, oh yeah, actually he makes a point. Yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, that's actually pretty good. And the thing I loved and people who I've recommended to love that you have a personalized message with every order. And that really shows the person who's ordering that you care about not just giving them good food, but also staying in their mind forever. So whenever they think of something they want to eat, the first person that comes to their mind is you. So did that go with you doing it, or you just did it out of the niceness of your heart?
Niceness of my heart.
That's
Okay.
the
Let's
thing you're
go with
supposed to
that.
say. Yeah.
Let's go with that. But it was just like a genuine. I am not great with capturing the aesthetic part of packaging.
Yeah.
Like I'd be good on a plate.
Yeah, I think you're great at capturing emotions.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
And I
thank
think
you.
you're using that as your USP, which has really worked. Because whoever I've recommended to, that's the thing they tell me about it. They feel that it's cooked with love or made
Oh,
with
man.
love. Yeah. So I think that's. Do you think that's something all businesses should aspire, especially ones that are starting out, that they should focus mainly on making the person happy rather than looking as if it's professional? Like it might not be the best looking thing, but at least it's made someone's day.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Like, I'm glad all the references really love it. Again, it's just something I started doing out of the genuineness of what like my thoughts and a Sharpie could accomplish, which I feel like it's translating well.
Yeah.
As far as what businesses should aim for, I think it's mainly putting a lot of heart into taking care of your own people who make amazing food, and simply having faith in the process, because it's a difficult. I mean, many things are difficult in life.
Yeah.
Running an enterprise is one of them. So having certain clarity on the goals you want to achieve, also giving certain amount of space, that not everything you plan will go exactly how you plan it. So be ready to improvise, be ready to accept certain changes.
Yeah.
Not all of them with a stone on your heart, but at least some of them to a point where you're not letting your ego kind of get in the way of what you want to achieve through your enterprise. I think we were just covering a point earlier before we started recording, was that perfection can be the enemy of good enough or good.
Yeah.
And that's something I really stand by still. I mean, 3 years of having my own starter, but Veda is close to 2 years old now. And every time I think of that statement, I think, yeah, if I didn't take the chance of starting this,
Yeah.
2 years down the line, I wouldn't have had over 3,000 loaves and so many people having so many memorable meals being cooked out of something I was able to provide. It's a very simple statement to make,
Yeah.
but it kind of translates to a motivation that helps with my discipline, that okay, like I can keep going.
And do you set yourself any milestones, or you just go with the flow?
Oh no, that setting milestones is quite important. So I for the first 6 months, I'd say I didn't really set any milestones. I just wanted to see what I can make, which is like a stupid thing to do. But I'm glad I did it, and I'm also glad I was that person for the first 6 months, because it kind of made me reflect on the things I was unable to do.
Yeah.
And now I'm able to like kind of reform the kind of thinking and push out certain goals in front of me that are sort of achievable. So planning is important, and In the
So what would you say your
in the
milestones?
main material sense, you want to reach a certain level of money you can pocket.
Yeah.
That is your money to spend liberally on improving your processes, and pretty much like I think there's one aspect of helping the people around you with your money,
Yeah.
and taking care of the ship that you're sailing with.
So what would you say your milestones are now in the next, say, 6 months? Do you plan on?
I have a lot of travel that I'm planning on.
Okay.
So, like I said, Veda is really good for my ambition.
Mhm.
It makes my ego satisfied. But I also
It also
work-
satisfies your bank account, so that's another
Yeah,
positive. Yeah.
yeah. That's kind of like an important one as well.
It's a win-win. Yeah.
Yeah. I generally don't tend to think along those lines of.
But it's important.
Yeah, it's certainly important.
Yeah.
But I generally don't. That's just the kind of thoughts I have.
Hmm.
But like I said, I being working as an experiential educator also, which is mainly just going out, meeting new people, facilitating adventure camps or treks and safaris. Getting out, being in the outdoors,
Yeah.
is something that's very important to me. It's incredibly important to me that I step out of my work environment, because one thing I would like listeners to also realize is that I work out of my home.
Yeah.
So sometimes that line gets blurred. Am I home or am I at work?
Exactly.
And that's kind of a difficult line to like keep drawing and re-establishing. So for that matter, I need something that kind of nourishes my free thinking to the point of like nourishing my soul, that I need to really step out,
Yeah.
find new inspiration and come back. I'm fortunate enough that I've gotten to a point. I started early teaching children in orphanages, and
So is that something that you've always wanted to do, or you've?
I never knew I always wanted to do something like being in the outdoors.
Yeah.
The point I was getting to was that I'm fortunate enough that whenever I freelance, my travels get taken care of. Like I don't need to spend an extra amount of money to do it, which is a huge help.
Yeah.
And it really it transforms my positive experience of being able to cook with love, because that does get affected, because it is a mechanical process. It will get to a point where you are unable to put your heart into your food as much as you'd love it, as much as you think that, oh, I'm going to start my own venture and it's going to do this, it's going to do that.
Yeah.
It will physically, emotionally tire you to a point, and you will want to take a certain step back. And that's, I've kind of like structured my life in a way where I have this step aside for me,
Yeah.
which I feel fortunate. Like I take pride in having done that for myself, because I'm a complete outlier in the hospitality industry. I'm nothing like a. I mean, like I keep reiterating that there's many people who can cook circles around me and do
Exactly.
amazing
Yeah.
work, and it fascinates me. Just the concept of like people having these individual strengths and skill sets. It fascinates me, and that is why I mainly miss working in teams.
Yeah.
But being an outlier, I kind of like struggle to own up to the kind of life I was leading. Kind of felt like an imposter, thinking, "Oh, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even spend 12 hours in the kitchen. What good are you?" Until I got to a point where I just said that it's just cooking, right?
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough that when I was in Copenhagen, I keep saying the word fortunate a lot.
That's good. You're
when I-
fortunate about a lot of things.
Yeah, when I was in Copenhagen, I met this 36-year-old section chef at a beautiful restaurant.
Okay. What is a section chef?
There's different hierarchies. In India, it's even more ridiculous that like you take 6 hierarchies, like 6 levels in the hierarchy, and you split like the top guy into 2.
So is the top guy the sous chef?
Yeah. No, the top guy is gonna be the executive, and then there's
No, I'm talking in the kitchen.
No, there's always the executive chef, then the head chef, then the sous chef, then the section chef,
Okay.
and there's commissary or commie chefs,
Yeah.
who pretty much support the chef, the parties, and there's interns. I would suggest that they are like part of a horizontal system where everyone needs each other to function, but it is pretty much known as a hierarchy.
Yeah.
And yeah, what was the point I was getting at? I met a section chef. Okay, he's like somebody in the hierarchy. You don't need to get like too deep into it. But this guy was 36 and he used to sell insurance up until the age of 28. And at 28, he decided, I'm just going to try and be a chef. And I thought, like, how could you think that? Because I know people who've been working since they were 17, and by 22 they're like, I don't want to do this. I don't know this is horrible. Like, there are people who are just like disgusted by the standards that are out there. And this guy, he's English. He goes, I mean, it just requires common sense, right? If you think about it, it's just cooking, and you just keep doing it. You get to a point where you know what you're doing, and you can take it from there. And that's really stuck with me when I was 20, about to be 21. Is that, oh yeah, it is just cooking. So it really helped me pull myself out of this imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You can put incredibly high standards and give no room for failure and think about being the best every second and minute of your life. That is incredibly noble. It is a ruthless way of leading yourself into the annals of like discipline, and it is, I highly respect it, but I could not do it. Like the kind of mentality I have, the way I function, I could not do that. I could not sustain it.
Yeah.
It may have to do with my temperament, the kind of person I am, my personality overall. And I kind of struggled with that guilt early on, thinking that I am a complete imposter in this sphere. But then I was able to pull myself out of it, thinking this is just cooking, right? There's so much more to life that we're able to do. And there's so much more we can like derive gratification out of. And sometimes not everything has to be about deriving gratification. I mean, on a very root level, everything is about that.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can just like, as people say, relax.
Yeah.
Don't make everything so deep. So I wouldn't say I relax to that extent, but I'm able to like compartmentalize areas where I can derive gratification from. So,
but I guess your experience at the farm is also helpful in that way, right? It's a completely different thing altogether, and that takes you away from your work while it's also teaching you things, while it's also getting your mind off other things. What do you, just for the viewers, can you explain to them what the farm is? Yeah.
For sure. The farm has been transformative in my life.
Would you say it's one of the best experiences of your life?
Of course.
And the best decision to go there, yeah.
I still do. So for everyone listening, the farm is the flagship project of Protectera Ecological Foundation, founded by our lovely director Pooja Bhale, and she works in the field of spiritual ecology. What that would mean, without a lot of fancy stuff, is that we help people connect to the earth through education outreach. And it is a strong community of people from many different walks of life who come in, and it is an entirely, I would say, volunteer-driven organization to a point. We've built a mud oven from scratch, and it's a space that is quite conscious, moving towards becoming zero waste. We had chapters of community-supported agriculture at the farm, which garnered a different community's attention itself. That there were people, we had no idea there's so many people who were so disengaged from simply being out in nature that they just wanted to get their hands into the dirt and grow things. Which is one of the reasons I actually went and found the farm, which is a funny story, but not worthwhile right now.
Next time you're on, we can discuss that.
Yeah. Hoping there's a next time.
Of course, there will be.
Protectera does immense work in, I would say, restructuring the lives of people who are able to connect to the farm as a home. Because all the people I know, I'm part of the core community team today. We've done countless camps with children who've been attracted to the farm and their parents who've been long-standing members. And it's just this community that's kind of brought the entire place and transformed it together over the past 12 years, 8 years of the farm being operational. It's lovely, and you can pretty much go on the website and check it out. It's called Protectera Ecological Foundation in Pune. The address will show up. There'll be a website if you Google it. Protectera is Protect Terra, but the T is shared, so it's PROTECTERRA. Lots of love to the farm community there. Yeah.
So how is that? You said that's had an impact on your life. You've made a lot of close bonds. You've done a lot for. What would you say? You've done a lot for nature. You've done a lot for animals.
Yeah, I don't know what. I've never thought of it.
What would you say that?
sense.
What kind of a change? Not you personally, but as a whole, that they've made something that's noteworthy, something that you'll be really proud of.
I think it's been one of those spaces where I've had some aspect of Zen meditation in my life, where I've been able to do work on end and simply organize my thoughts while doing it in complete silence. So one of the main credits I give to our community is that I've been able to be around such driven people with so many different perspectives. It has built a certain amount of robustness, I believe, in my character. And on top of that, I also help facilitate a conversation space, which is operational every Thursday at a restaurant called Coffee Nation on Law College Road. Everyone's welcome to join from 7 to 9 p.m. And it's simply a space where people feel free to be heard and to share, as you would pretty much stereotype a safe space to be, but not to the extent that people cannot be politically incorrect over fear of holding their thoughts to themselves and not speak what's on their mind over fear of being judged. So in the very essence of it, a non-judgment space where you could come and spew what objectively or subjectively could be thought of as bullshit by a certain group of people, but you feel it genuinely, so you should be able to speak it, and then you have the liberty to reorganize what you've said in your mind, understand the words, understand the reactions you're getting out of it, the responses, and I think that is one of the reasons I'm kind of so talkative and eloquent on the podcast right now.
That's what I want you to be.
Yeah.
And you've been a great first guest. But yeah, before we wrap this baby up, I wanted to just for you to tell the viewers, especially those who are just getting into this field, what advice would you give them? Something that you wish you would have known when you were getting into it, and all that you've learned and you've seen the industry, and you've obviously spoken a lot about it. So what would you tell them that will not demotivate them but will open their eyes so that they know what challenges they can face ahead?
That I think the first sense would be that nothing is more important than you. At every stage in the journey of your professional career, your cup has to be full. It has to be. You have to operate out of a place of, as corny as it sounds, basic love and kindness. It's incredibly important, and give yourselves a lot more room for errors and failures than you are putting pressure on yourself for your success. It is pretty much like a wild goose chase where you can't see the goose also, some invisible wild goose chase, right?
Yeah.
And it's okay to not know where you're heading, because you will find a certain calling that will occur with a lot of mindfulness. And don't give up on yourself. This is a job. It's work. It's a beautiful line of work where you're able to translate your thoughts into a form of art that is tangible for a few moments, and then it gets consumed and then it's gone. Don't forget that it is just a job. As beautiful as it is, you're able to translate these thoughts of yours into art, and you're learning things. You're able to present a beautiful plate that is you're able to see for a few minutes. You're able to observe and really revel in its beauty. It's tangible for a few moments and then it gets consumed. And you will strive for consistency there. You will strive for a certain amount of discipline, and it will improve your lives in manners you probably couldn't even imagine. You will credit this line of work in many ways. It will build character. But please realize, I would say that it is a job. It is your life. I understand. For many people who might just be thinking that this is my life, how can somebody say that? This 25-year-old has no idea what he's talking about. I completely understand that outrage
But
as well.
you've got a certain amount of experience where you can
No,
that
but
you can share, right?
I understand this strata of people that might be thinking like, okay, let's just like close this down. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But all I'm saying is you can get to a point where there you have such abundance in your experiences and uh, beautiful plates that you're creating and making and pushing out, and customers are enjoying it. You can have all of that while maintaining the sanctity of your mind is my main point.
Yeah.
So for especially somebody who's starting out very young, they're incredibly hard on themselves, which I would suggest is not the way to be. And for anybody who's in hospitality, I would want them to talk to each other. There's people out there listening. There's people wanting to talk to you as much as you want to be heard. So please give each other the benefit of that doubt. And yeah, it'll be okay. Mainly that it will be okay.
That's wonderful, and thanks for being such a wonderful guest.
Thanks, man.
I couldn't have a better guest for episode number 1. And before we end this video, can you tell everyone where they can find you, your social media handles?
Oh yeah, my name is Vibhor Thorat. Yeah, that's the camera. My name is Vibhor Thorat. That's VIBHORTHORAT. If you go onto my Instagram, you'll find the same, and after the @ and in my link you'll find my work as well. So that's Veda for you.
And how can they find the farm?
The farm, you can find it through the website, that is www.protecterra ecological foundation. protecterraef.org is what it should be.
Perfect. I guess that's all.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks for having me.
Perfect.
This has been lovely.
It's been a great
Thank
episode.
you for listening, everyone.
See you guys. Bye-bye.